Hi, in this video, we'll be learning how to draw basic shapes using p5.js. So at the end of this video, we will learn how to draw these kind of shapes like straight lines, circles, or combination of different shapes, something a little more complex, using some outline shapes, and also this kind of counter shape where a shape has another shape punching a hole in it. And before we get into drawing, we first need to know how the coordinate system works in P5. So I'm here using this Illustrator, and the coordinate system basically works the same. So drawing or painting on screen is basically changing the color of this tiny pixel on your screen. And to be able to do that, we need to know where each pixel is located. So this is two-dimensional space, so we use x and y coordinates. So x is basically going across and y is going down. So we're going to start from top left corner, which is the origin. So it's got x0 and y0, 0, 0. And as we move towards right, x value increases. 1, 2, 3, 10, 100. Same thing with y. As we move down from top left corner, x will remain 0, but y value will increase. So 1, 2, 3, 10, 20. To quickly test that, let me bring up the info panel of Illustrator. And here's what I like you to see, x and y, as I'm moving my cursor around the screen. I'm going to move my cursor to the top left corner. Then you will see the value of x and y in the info panel is basically 0, 0, right? And then as I'm moving my cursor to the right, you see that x value increases. Same thing with y, just like this. So let's say you want to paint a pixel at x100 and y50. x100 around this point and y50. Then I move down from here. So keep the x same, but just move down to 50, right about here. So that's where the pixel will be painted. So this way you can find any pixel on screen and be able to change its color. Now of course, if you go beyond this 0, 0, the origin point, then we also get the negative range of numbers. With that in mind, let's move to p5js online editor and start drawing. If you want to save your progress, make sure you log into your account. And here's an empty sketch. So what are these code already added here? So we basically have two different blocks of code. First one is set up. You can see by this curly brace where it opens here and close on line 3 after create canvas. And we have another block called function draw, which opens here and closes here. For now, I'm not going to explain what these setup and draw functions are for. I will just simply keep them as they are and add our own codes below the background in the draw. And I'll explain what these are in another video. And in the setup, we have this create canvas. This is called function call. So you add these function calls to command p5js to do something, either to draw something on screen or do some mathematical calculations. We call these functions that p5js provides us. So create canvas, and it takes a form like this. We have a name of the function, then we open parenthesis and close parenthesis and end with the semicolon, but semicolon is optional in this case. And some functions will just run like that without any numbers in between. But in this particular case of create canvas, we do need to provide two different numbers separated by comma. That'll be, as you can guess, width and height of your drawing canvas. So when I type in 400, 400 within the parentheses of create canvas function, then I run it, and we get a drawing canvas which is sized at 400 pixel and 400 pixel. And you can play with this number. If I go 800 by 400, then it gets wider. And let's go into draw function. We have this background function call. So background can take different number of parameters, as we call them. Right now we have single number, which sets a grayscale value of the background. So it's 220. You can also play with this number. 120 will make it darker. And again, we'll talk about the colors more in the other videos. The first function we will learn in terms of drawing something is point. The point function will change a single pixel from your drawing canvas. And it needs two numbers to work properly. So X and Y location. Just like what we talked about in Illustrator, we need to provide X coordinate and Y coordinate to find and change the color of that pixel. So let me say 50, 50, 50, 50. Not sure if you can see that, but I can see there's a tiny, tiny single pixel now painted in black. So let me zoom in, and hopefully you can see it now. So if I want to draw a straight horizontal line, I'm going to have to continue on just painting pixel along the way, one at a time. Just like this. And of course, this is not how you want to draw anything at all, right? So p5.js also has a function called line. And I'm also going to add this 2 forward slashes. This is a command. So when you start a line with these 2 forward slashes, the p5.js will just ignore and not run it. So this is a good place where you can write some notes for yourself. I'm just going to say, so point takes two numbers, x and y. And what about line function? Line function takes four numbers, x1, y1, and x2 and y2. So it takes coordinates of two different points anywhere on screen, and it will just connect them in a straight line. So how about we draw a line from top left corner all the way to the bottom right corner. And the first point coordinate will be 0, 0, the origin. And the second point will be all the way, so 800 by 400. There you go. So that's line. And we also have rect function to draw rectangles. It takes four numbers, x and y, coordinate of top left corner of your rectangle, and then width and height. So rect. And how about I draw from the center of screen going this way, a rect. So the center point of my screen will be 800 divided by 2, so 400, and 400 divided by 2, 200. And I just want to draw a square, small square, so 50, 50 for width and height. There you go. So that's rect. And we also have ellipse. Ellipse works the same way. It takes x and y coordinates and width and height. But here's the difference. By default, rect x and y is this top left corner, but ellipse x and y is the center of your ellipse. Okay, so that's the difference. Let me just draw ellipse maybe somewhere around this left side of my canvas. The center point of my ellipse will be something like 200, 200. And width and height, I will say 150. So that's my ellipse. So if you want to make a perfect circle, just make the width and height the same. So that's the basics, and let's move on and draw some more shapes. Here I have my reference image on the left and my empty sketch on the right, and I just set the canvas size to 100 by 200 pixel, just so I can get the same size as my reference images. And I will try to recreate these shapes using p5.js. So when you begin to draw with code, I highly suggest that you get graph paper sketchbooks, because working with numbers to draw things are not what we used to, and it can feel very confusing. So at least when you are getting started, I highly suggest that you use some kind of guides and grid, just like this. Okay, so let's draw the first shape. So here I have this small grid. Each unit, let's say it represents 10 pixels. Okay, so it looks like this take 3 different lines. So let's draw the first line. So that's 10x and 20y. I'm going to start the line function, 10x, 20y for the first point. And the second point will be all the way, so 90x and 20y. 90x and 20y. There you go. Just going to call it f. And the second line will reuse the same coordinate, 10 and 20. And the end of the line here is x10, and y will be 200, 190, 180. So 10, 180. You're getting there. And the last one will be how many units? X, single, 10, x10. And y will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 90. And x will be 80. Y will be the same, 90. So we just drew, like uppercase F. And I'm going to just comment them all, just select all the lines. And if you hit Command on Mac, Command / then you can comment the multiple lines at the same time so that I can move on to the next one. So figure 8. So this is made up of 2 different circles. And to draw a circle, we'll need to find the center point, so right here. So that's the center of my width. So width is 100. So I can say that's 50. And then how many units that I need to move down? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So that'll be 50, 50. So ellipse 50, 50. And what's the width? So here we're talking about the diameter, right? Not just radius, but diameter. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So 60. And I know it's a perfect circle, so keep using 60 for the height. And then the second ellipse or circle, x will be the same, 50. The y will be, this used to be 50, so let me count from this, 50, 60, 70, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. It'll be 130. And the diameter is a full width, which is 100. Then we get this number 8. And you might be wondering about this white fill inside, because there are 2 different types of color we can set on any shape. One is stroke and the other is fill. So the default color for stroke is black and default fill color is white. And we'll talk more about the colors later, but for now, if you want to just disable fill color, simply say no with uppercase F, fill. And this function call doesn't take any number. And you have to add this before you draw. Let me comment that out again and move on to the next one. All right, so it says, I think it has 3 different shapes, 2 circles and a single straight line. So let me first draw these circles. So x will be 50 at the center, and y will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 60. So ellipse 50, 60. And the diameter is 60. And then we have another one. Y is starting from 60, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14. So it'll be 50, 140, and 60, 60. And we have line, which starts at x20 and y60. The second point of the line is x same, right, 20. And then y will be 200 minus 60, so 140. And here also I want to disable fill color. So done. Again, I'm going to comment that out and move on to capital A. And I want to try something a little different here. So if you only know how to use line function, then you will need how many lines? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, at least 6 lines you have to use. And as you can see, many times when you're drawing a complex shape, you have this point that sort of are shared by different lines, right? But if you have a lot of line segments that are connected, there are different functions we can use. Vertex. So vertex works like just like point, but the difference is vertex can be connected as like a line. Okay. So let me start from this. So that's x10 and y180. I'm gonna just continue on. Again, vertex works just like point. So it only requires you to provide x and y coordinates of each point. The second one is x10 and y will be 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 10 by 40. Vertex, third one is x3 and y2, so 30, comma 20. So I'm adding this vertex function calls by you're not seeing any result. And that's because when you're using vertex, here's another thing you have to do. You have to surround this whole group of vertices with beginShape and end that shape with endShape function. So this way, p5.js know how many vertices you are connecting and treat it like a single shape. So you can place any number of vertices in between beginShape and endShape. Now we start to see some kind of shape here. Okay, so let me continue on. So that's x70, y20. And then x90 and y40. The last one will be x90 and y180. I think our code is a lot simpler than just using lines and lines and lines. And again, it also has a default fill color, which I will disable before I begin this shape. No fill. And the last one, I mean, this is not really part of this shape, right? Because if you try to do that, let's say I want to continue on. Vertex x10 and y90. And the vertex x90, y90. Then just keep adding and adding, which I kind of looks cool here, but that's not what I want in this case. So you can't just continue adding vertex within a single beginShape, endShape. But instead, in this case, I mean, we can just simply use line in this case, okay? So I'm just going to add line after we end this shape. So that was what, 10, 90, and 90, 90. Okay, done. And for the next shape, I want to come back to the first one we drew, the uppercase F, using 3 different lines. And look at this example. I want to make it thicker, right? Right now, the stroke has a weight. Its weight is 1 pixel, very thin. If you want to change the weight of stroke, we have another function called stroke, capital W, weight. And in between this parentheses, you give how thick it should be. Then again, you have to set this before you draw the shapes you want to change. So the default value is 1, so we won't see any difference. But if I say 10, it's 10 times thicker. Or in this case, 20, 20. So this is basically becoming like a stroke font, right? So in Illustrator, if you've been using the stroke panel, you know that we can control, yes, the weight, stroke weight, just like this. But we can also control cap, right? And we can do that as well in P5. So just like this. We got a round cap, but we can also change it. And to change it, we use strokeCap function with capital C. And in between these parentheses, this time we're not giving a number per se. Instead, we give sort of a defined like a word. So all capital round will make your stroke cap round. All caps square will make it just like this, the default Illustrator setting, square. We have another one called project. Project sort of goes around and make the end kind of longer, a little longer. So depending on the situation. The 3 options, round is default, and we have square, and we have also project. And moving on to this F. So here, the cap looks a little different, right? We only have 3 options, round, square, and project. But this is very irregular cap. So in this case, if you want to draw something like this, I don't think you can do it with simple lines and stroke weights. But instead, you can create this outline, right? Just like how we use multiple vertices. So instead of just defining 3 different lines, we're going to have to define vertices that create the outline of this shape. So I will let you try that, maybe start from this point and continue on to draw this shape. So that's why I suggest that you really want to sort of sketch out your shapes on graph paper before you jump into P5, because these numbers are not very intuitive. Okay, so moving to the last shape we have, it's uppercase P. So here I will use vertices. So let me first define beginShape and endShape. And between them, I'm going to start adding lots of vertices. I'm going to start from this point. You don't have to. You can start from anywhere, but that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to go clockwise, okay, to surround this. So first point is 10, 180. I hope you are getting used to this, reading the coordinate by now. If not, we just need more practice. So 10, 180, that's 1020. And then that'll be 80, 20. Then that's 90, 30. And that's 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. So 90, 90. And that was 90, 90. So 80, 100. So that was 80, 100. So that'll be 30, 100. And that'll be 30, 180. Okay, so last point, we have two choices. You can either add one more vertex that has the same coordinate as the first point, so 10, 180, just to close the shape. Or instead of adding the same point twice, endShape can take this optional parameter, called close. If you do that, it will connect the last point to the first point. So that's up to you, depending on situations. So I will use close in this case. Okay, great. And we can later change colors. So to change color of fill, we say fill, and the black has a value 0. All right, done. So now we have this larger outline of this uppercase P shape. So it's time to think about this sort of hole inside. Right now in Illustrator file, I didn't put a hole. This is just a white square that I just put on top of my shape, which is not a really proper way of handling this, right? Because what if I change the background color of my entire canvas from white to something else? Then I have to always remember to change the color of this as well. So instead, I want to treat it more properly. Like I think in Illustrator, it's called like compound shape, I think, or compound path. And we can also do that in P5. So here's where things get a little bit complex. So I have this beginShape and endShape, and where I place a lot of vertices. So usually when you are starting a new shape, you will just start another beginShape and endShape after you finish the first one, right? Just like this. But in this case, these two shapes are sort of related because I need to punch a hole inside. So I'm going to continue on in this group of begin and end shape. And instead of creating another begin and end shape, I will say begin contour and end contour. And whatever vertices you put inside will sort of put a hole. And the direction of drawing is also important. So if you remember, I start drawing from this vertex, the first one, and started drawing clockwise. And for the contour shape, you need to draw in the opposite direction, meaning you have to draw from counterclockwise. Doesn't matter which point you start drawing first, but the direction should be counterclockwise. So I'm going to start with this vertex, which has a x30 and y40. And then I'm going to go counterclockwise, so go down. So x30 and y80. Continue on. X70, Y80. Now you start to see the effect. So let me finish the last vertex. X70 and Y40. There you go. So this is now a proper counter shape. And you will see that when I change my background color to something, let's say bright, and that's a hole, not just another square on top. So that's all I have for this video. But if you go to p5js website, make sure you check out the reference section because there are a couple other drawing functions. Let's go to shape. So 2D primitives. So you can draw arc, which you will learn later. Ellipse, and there's a simplified version for just drawing circle. A line point, you have quad, rect, square, triangle. And if you go to rect, for instance, we learn how to use this X, Y, and width and height. But you can also create these rounded corners. We haven't talked about this. And you can even control different roundness for each corner as well. So there are some other things you can learn from and rect mode as well. Remember that rect is drawn from top left corner, but you can also draw rect from the center, just like ellipse, by changing rect mode. Same thing with ellipse. Ellipse has ellipse mode, where you can draw ellipse from the corner instead of drawing from the center. And there's like stroke join and using vertex. So check out some of these and see what they do. And I'll see you in the next video.